All right, again, this is Brian. I'm going to show you a typical fuel pump used on the older snow machines. Again, there's just 4 screws, bolts I guess you'd call them, that hold this thing together. Again, I typically scratch it. I'll scratch the different parts to the fuel pump, so I know how to put it back together, and then there's no guesswork. Again, these things are very simple inside. This hose here attaches to the crankcase, or sometimes it'll attach to where the carburetor is, you know, depending on the machine and all. Okay, very simple. So it's got 2 black gaskets, and then a plastic membrane here that is flexible. I remember working on one of these when I scratched my head for hours, and come to find out I wasn't looking close enough, there was a crack in that membrane, in the plastic part of it here. Okay, and all the way this thing works is you see these little flaps that help to seal. And what's going on right now is I had it working just fine just a few minutes ago, is the plastic part of it needs to bend back like this so that it will seal on these holes. So again, I've taken these apart out in the country, and I was having an issue with it, and you got to be really careful the wind doesn't catch things and have them go bye-bye. But all I'm going to do now, see how I bent those? I just bent that a little bit, that clear plastic. So what it'll do then is it'll seal against the hole. Because what's going on here with these is the passageways. Again, if I just set this back on, and these are really cool the way they're made. See these little prongs on there? See those prongs sticking out? This will not allow you to put this together wrong. If you try to put it together this way, see how it just doesn't match up. Okay. Same thing with the other parts to it. So see the chambers, and if you look on this, if you look on here, here's an arrow going this way and another arrow going this way. So that means this is where the gas comes in, this is where the gas goes out. So again, in these chambers, this is so cool how this works and how simple this works. Is we'll get this on here correctly and be gentle, have gentle hands. Again, guys need to learn gentle hands. Okay? Again, I broke lots of things, but I've learned over the years, just be gentle with things, be kind. It saves you lots of time and lots of money down the road. Again, this fuel pump was not working. And again, they're so simple inside. It's because a lot of times they don't seal. So what I did is I took my fingers and I got the plastic part of this and I bent these in like this. So what it's going to do now is when I put it back together, and again, it won't let you put it back together wrong. It does have to fit. So I'm going to put it back on here. I'm going to put it back on these little prongs. And when it matches just right, see that's wrong. See where that sticks up a little bit? So I'm going to turn it around. See how it matches here now? How the surfaces match? And now if you look at it, you can see where those are going to close. Okay? Again, this is the clear membrane. This is the inside of that in this chamber. All it does is flex back and forth. It's flexing back and forth using the turning of the crankshaft with the piston moving up and down and creating a high and low pressure system in the crankcase. So we're taking advantage of that to run the fuel system as well. So again, it's pushing the gas. Because what happens then when the piston moves up, it creates a low pressure system in one of the chambers of this. And again, we just take our time, we can look, and it would be creating a low pressure system. Just get it turned right, just take your time. So the gas then is coming in, would be coming in here. So when the piston moves up, what it's doing is creating a low pressure system in this chamber. Okay, so what happens is that this little valve, the little valve, I get this the right orientation here. This little valve here is opening right here. So here's the science never sucks. So what happens is when the low pressure system is produced in here, the gas tank has to be open to atmospheric pressure. That's why you have that little tube out of the top of the gas tank. So what happens then is when the low pressure system is created here, the atmospheric pressure becomes the high pressure. It pushes on the top of the gas, it's in the gas tank, and pushes into that chamber. The gas is not sucked into that little chamber. That's not how it works. Okay? It's pushed. Okay? So then when the piston comes down and it creates high pressure, this then becomes a high pressure area and it pushes it to the other chamber. So it's opening, these little flaps here are opening and closing because of the pressure difference that is occurring in the crankcase. So again, using the piston moving up and down in the cylinder, creating high and low pressure in the crankcase is what is used through a tube to create high and low pressures in the chambers of the fuel pump so that the fuel can be moved from the fuel pump to the carburetor. Not rocket science. It's not rocket science, is it, folks? It's pressure difference. We've talked earlier about torque specs. There isn't a torque spec on these. So after a while you get a feel. You get a feel of how tight things are supposed to be. Don't overdo it. There's no reason to get all crazy with this. Snug it down good. And if you're having problems getting these loose, if you can't get with a screwdriver, don't strip the heads because then you're going to have issue. The best thing to do is to grab these with a vice grip and thread them out of there. Okay. But sometimes if it's bad enough, they'll break off. Well, then you start over. So again, this line goes to the crankcase where you're getting the high and low pressures. Because actually, when I would pour, again, this is just water, this isn't gasoline. If I pour that in there, well, there it comes. Let me see if I can pour it enough to get the air out of it. Let's see if we can get this thing to pump a little bit. Pretty cool, huh? In other words, all I'm doing I'm mimicking what's going on in the crankcase. I'm producing high and low pressure with my mouth, and you can see how much gas is moving. That's quite a bit of gas. Think about how fast the engine is turning. So it'd be pumping a lot of gas. So it should be no problem whatsoever. And again, it's kind of cool, a little bit of logic. These two little flaps are opening and closing opposite each other, depending on what chamber is high pressure and low pressure. And again, all I did really to get this thing going again is to bend that plastic a little bit so that it would seal the hole on the one side of the pump. Again, that might help you sometime when you're out in the country to get going again. Something else I've seen with folks is this tube here. And again, this shouldn't be just gas line. It should be a thick one just because of the pressure difference going on there. But it'll get rotten. It'll rot a little bit on the end, either end, and then you're not getting the pressure difference you need. In other words, it's leaking. So it's not producing the high and low pressure that's going on in the crankcase is not being transferred to the fuel pump. We're going to move on. We're going to take a look at a 1993 Polaris. I believe it's a 440, and I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about the complete fuel system and how that works. Be back in a bit.